Buenos días, Andrea, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien, Orlando Sanchez. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to TLC Live as every Wednesday at 11, más o menos.
Yep. And the heat's on in Texas.
Oh my God, it's crazy. But you know, at least last night it was raining, so it
Cool.
was a little bit, it
Cooled
cooled
you off.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, but the heat's on in Texas in more ways than just the temperature, folks. It's getting hot politically too. There's a lot going on in the state of Texas right now.
A lot, a lot. And it's getting hotter.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting summer and a very exciting fall, and then the spring elections, of course, for the primaries. And so we're going to go right into it. We have a lot of guests today, but the first guest that we have is Colonel Allen West. I've followed him for many, many years, and as you know, Colonel West has served honorably in the United States military and the U.S. Army, was a former congressman, and moved to Texas and became the Republican Party chairman. So, Colonel, good morning to you from, I guess you're joining us up in North Texas, right? And you're a brand new grandpa.
Mr. West, buenos
Yeah.
días.
Buenos dias. ¿Cómo estás? It's good to be
Muy
with you,
bien.
Orlando and Andrea. Thank you so much.
So, Colonel, what's going on in Texas, and more importantly, what's going on with you? Give us, first of all, congratulations on your first grandchild. I've seen some great pictures. I hope the mom and dad and child are doing well, and I'm sure we have happy grandparents. But what's going on politically in the state of Texas?
Well, I think what you see happening in the state of Texas, we have a constitutional crisis that is going on when you look at our border. When you have a federal government who has a duty and responsibility to protect the sovereignty of the United States of America and therefore the sovereignty of the state of Texas, which has a 1,200-mile border with a foreign nation. But now the federal government has abdicated that duty, responsibility, that constitutional enumerated policy that they're supposed to live up to. And so what does the state do? And so I think that right now the challenge for the state of Texas is to look at how do we protect ourselves here and protect our border and stand up for those principles of liberty and freedom and provide the safety and security that is necessary for our citizens. So this is a huge issue. We're looking at an undermining, I think, of the state of Texas with this flood of illegal immigrants, the most that we've seen in 2 decades coming across the border. And we're talking about 180,000 that are being detained, but then there's close to 45 and maybe up to 48,000 that are still getaways, as they call it, down with the Customs and Border Patrol.
Yeah, and you talk about the wave of folks that are coming over, but you know who bears the real burden in the state of Texas because, as you know, our state is heavily dependent, and so are the counties, on property taxes. So the folks
Yes.
bearing the brunt of the undocumented wave and illegal aliens coming into this country are the local property taxpayers, and nobody's
Mhm.
feeling that pain more than people down in South Texas because they have to support their local school district, they have to
Mhm.
support their local EMS, they have to support their local sheriff, and as you know,
Mhm.
and you go into these small counties, Kinney County, Valverde County, Zapata County,
Mhm.
some of these counties are very small. They only have a couple of deputy sheriffs for the entire county.
Yeah.
And so this is a real strain on South Texas, right, Colonel? I know you spend a lot of time down there, but the state of Texas is totally dependent on sales tax, but the property tax burden is really what's hammering the local taxpayers.
No, you're absolutely right, Orlando. And as a matter of fact, I'll be going down to Zapata County this Friday. And what you see happening when you allow this scourge of illegal immigration to freely flow across our borders because of an open borders policy from this current administration, it does have the second, third, and fourth order effects on our systems of education, our healthcare systems, our local law enforcement, safety, and security. But also, one of the things we have to combat and confront here in Texas, we're the number one state in the United States of America for human and sex trafficking. And where I live up here in the Metroplex, the Dallas Metroplex, and where you live down in Houston, we're the top two cities in the United States of America for human and sex trafficking. So this is immoral, what we see happening, not just to the taxpayers, but just to the citizens of Texas overall. And so if we're to be a constitutional republic, if we're to be a sovereign state, we've got to fix this issue.
Yeah, and you talk about up in North Texas and the Dallas area and Houston being the sex trafficking capital of the world, and simultaneously the cities that are run by the liberals are defunding police at a time, Colonel, when we need more investigators to shut down these operations.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's unconscionable. It's ironic what you see happening. You look at the capital of Texas, Austin, Texas, where they defunded the police by some 150 million. And what did you just have happen down in Austin, Texas? A drive-by shooting where some 13 people were wounded. And you do see the rise of local criminality. And on top of that, you have these district attorneys like you have down in Harris County with Kim Ogg, and we have up here with John Crusoe in Dallas County that are releasing criminals out onto the streets. So they defund the police, they release criminals out into the streets. We have this flood of illegal immigrants coming in. And think about just recently in Houston, you had a stash house in Houston that had 90 illegal immigrants in there. So this is something that is unconscionable that we have happening in the state of Texas. So politically, in every way, shape, form, or fashion, this is a crisis of epic proportions.
Alan, you said that you're going on Friday to the border to support that community and that part of Texas. And also we heard about Governor Abbott that is taking action because this is like going out of control. What else needs to be done in Texas to protect our state?
Well, I will say this, and having served in the military and been on some borders before, like the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, when you talk about just putting up a border fence, I mean, that's kind of putting a Band-Aid on what we call a sucking chest wound. We need to have a full deployment of our National Guard to be down there along those infiltration routes, and we need to have interdiction of the drugs and the weapons and all of these things that are being flooded in. Because what the cartels, we need to declare them as transnational criminal and terrorist organizations. What they're doing is they're tying up the Customs and Border Patrol, and we have wide open borders, and they're just exploiting that and finding those gaps. So we need to have that full mobilization of our National Guard. We need to create a border control zone. We should not have illegal immigrants being spread out and dispersed all throughout the state of Texas. For instance, here in K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, we got 3,000 to 4,000 illegal immigrant males that are just slowly being released out into our communities. This should not be happening. So border control zones, and again, we need to somehow go through the legislative process and make sure that our own law enforcement agencies have some type of arrest and deportation powers when you have a federal government that has said, we're not going to deport people. We're not going to keep people in the border control zone. We're going to release them out into the communities and out all across the United States of America. So, and I think the most important thing, we got to go after the financing. We got to figure out where the money is flowing, and we got to cut that off.
You talk about the flow of undocumented aliens, but Colonel, I have lived in Texas since 1962. So I'm not new to the state. And as we say down here in Texas, this ain't my first rodeo. As you know, because when we met, I told you I'd served in the Air Force, and I was stationed at Laughlin Air Force Base, which, as you know, is on the border by the Rio Grande River. And the flow of undocumented aliens has been going on for decades and decades. And, the tragedy of it is that those that manage to come in live in the shadows for decades, and their children are becoming, that are born here are now U.S. citizens. And so this creates a real crisis in the nation, not only for, those families, but for us politically in this country, because we have a system which is basically a wink and nod immigration system. There is a need and a thirst in this country for cheap labor. The cheap labor happens to come from illegal aliens, which lowers the wage scale for everybody else that has done it legally. And it just creates a problem. I call it, and I don't know how you feel about this, but it is a modern system, sort of indentured servitude. These people have no representation. They live in the shadows. They do pay federal taxes and Social Security taxes, albeit in a fake ID, Social Security number. But they have no representation. They don't have a very bright future, in my opinion. And so, but there's people profiting from this. So not only do we have the illegal activity, right, the human sex traffickers, the drug traffickers, but we have an economy that's become dependent on the cheap labor provided by these people that, you know, sort of are the modern day indentured servants.
No, you're absolutely right. And so you have an illegal immigration system that needs to be reformed. My wife is originally from Jamaica. And once upon a time, Jamaicans were able to come and work here in the United States of America in a season. Of course, someone had responsibility. They were tracked. And after a season or a term of employment, they could return back to Jamaica. So we need to have a control of this. But I think it's a little bit different than what we have seen in past years, Orlando, because now we're talking about people that are being detained at our border from over 160 different countries. And some of those countries are listed on the terrorist watch list. So this is not just people coming across the board because they want to find a better job or a better opportunity. We're talking about the cartels working with organizations like Hezbollah and others to get people into this country. And recently, we had 2 Yemenis that were detained who were on the terrorist watch list. So I think that we need to understand that this is also a national security issue, which something that you should know about Laughlin Air Force Base. We don't need to have a very strategic Air Force base, which is there for pilot training, under that specter of illegal immigrants coming across who are from these terrorist watch list countries. And then also we now are housing illegal immigrants on Fort Bliss, Texas, one of the most strategic and important military installations for the United States Army. So I think that this thing has gotten a little bit out of control. And when you go back to the Reagan administration, remember we had the program of amnesty, but the federal government to this day has not done what they were supposed to do in fixing the broken immigration system. So we've got to fix this system.
Absolutely. And speaking of Laughlin Air Force Base, they're covered. They're surrounded. You know, their flanks are completely covered. They're surrounded by now the Chinese buying hundreds of thousands of acres, ostensibly to put in wind farms, right? In an area that is the airspace is pretty much for pilot training, as you mentioned, and they're surrounded by the cartels, the human smugglers. So they've got more going on out there than just pilot training. But yeah, it's a tough situation. It's unfortunate, but I think that the federal government has a duty and a responsibility to fix it. So as I said earlier, it's just a huge burden on our local property taxpayers. Andrea, you have a question?
Yeah, we have a comment talking about human trafficking. It's this lady, Michelle Sanchez. She said, this 14-year-old girl in Fort Worth, Texas, was just found by my house. She was being drugged and trafficked in a hotel room.
Yeah, it's a common occurrence.
Yeah.
They exploit the children. You see all these programs about missing children. You know, many of those children end up in the hands of human traffickers, where they are, sequestered, they're drugged, and they're put to work in the sex industry, and it's a tragedy. But again, that's not going to be abated until the federal government gets serious about that 1,200 plus mile border that we have. And it's Colonel, and here's how the left exploits it. When you and I and Andrea and everybody else talks about border security, all of a sudden they try to turn the table on us as being anti-immigrant. You're married to an immigrant, I'm assuming. I am an immigrant. Andrea is an immigrant. Just because we're conservatives doesn't mean we're anti-immigrant. We welcome immigrants. Your wife is now a U.S. citizen, I'm assuming. I'm a U.S. citizen naturalized. Andrea's a U.S. citizen naturalized. We're a welcoming country. And our party, Colonel, is growing in droves because the at least Latinos in Texas, and I know that a lot of African Americans are looking at our party too because they're tired of it. They're just sick and tired of it. But our party is growing, especially down in South Texas, because they've seen what the left does to these communities along the border. They don't give a rat about those communities. No. They don't care about the burden they're putting on the local taxpayers, on the local hospital districts, on their healthcare system, and their education system. And so, we are not anti-immigrant. We welcome immigrants. We encourage immigrants. We naturalize more than 1 million people from every corner of the globe in this country. We're the only country in the world that does that. And by the way, we are then allowed to run for office. Colonel, you know that I ran for mayor of Houston in the most historic race in the history of Houston because we voted more people in the runoff than the general election. No other country would ever allow an immigrant to run as a candidate for mayor of a major city, for U.S. Congress, or for governor, or for, the child of an immigrant like President Obama's parents, became president of the United States. This is the only country in the world that allows that, right, Colonel? So we're not anti-immigrant.
No, you're absolutely right. And, in 1961, I was born in a blacks only hospital. But, think about the fact that my dad was just a corporal in World War II in a segregated army. I grew up to become a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army and command a battalion in combat to become a member of the United States House of Representatives. My wife, who came here as an immigrant, her father served 24 years in the military, but she has, dual bachelor's degree in marketing finance, an MBA, and a PhD. That's what America's about. It's the equality of opportunity and the success that we have. And I think that you are seeing the tide turn, which is why you have Mayor-elect Villalobos down in McAllen, Texas, and you're starting to see more in the minority communities. President Trump had the most minority community support than any other previous Republican in 60 years. Why? Because we have seen the effects of the policies of the left with the just look at the black community, look at the crime, look at the fatherlessness, look at the breakdown of the family, look at the abortion rates and all of these type of things. And people are getting back to those fundamental conservative principles and values, which part of that is making sure that we protect our borders and protect our families and keep them safe and secure.
Now, also, I think off air we were talking about, but you and I did along with the Hispanic Republicans of Texas, joined forces down in Kerrville and came to the aid of a young man by the name of Roman Garcia, who, was running against a very liberal Democrat in Kerrville, Texas, the former mayor of, I don't know, Southeast Texas somewhere. Anyway, we had a rally out there, Colonel, and I got to tell you, I was really expecting, a crowd of about 60, and by 8:30 in the morning, we'd already filled the room. We had to double the size of the room, and we ran out of chairs. So, the teamwork is absolutely phenomenal in the minority community across the state of Texas, and I thank you for your leadership there. But, listening to you that day, you made a comment, and somehow it came up about Black Lives Matter, and you were telling the crowd how we conservatives usually just sort of lower our heads because, no one wants to be accused of being a racist, right? So we don't engage when we're attacked for being racist, when we're attacked for being anti-immigrant, when we're attacked because, Black Lives Matter. And you made a comment. You said the way to respond to that is, which Black Lives Matter?
Correct. Absolutely
I love
right.
that.
And
So explain to our conservative listeners how they should
sure.
respond, especially when, say, the liberal left says Black Lives Matter. Well, of course they do. You and I agree with that, right? That's just all lives matter. Black lives
All
matter.
lives
Hispanics matter. But your answer was, which Black lives?
Yeah, because we have to take away the narrative. And like you say, you have to go on offense. And Roman Garcia being a 19-year-old young Hispanic man, that represents the future. But when you think about the major issues that are facing the Black community, the fatherlessness, when you think about the fact that since 1973 Roe v. Wade, over 20 million Black babies have been murdered in the womb. No one's speaking out for those Black lives. As a matter of fact,
Yeah, they
Planned
obviously
Parenthood
didn't matter. That's right.
Yeah, the Planned Parenthood was founded by white supremacists and the racists, and the largest abortion mill, Planned Parenthood clinic in the country, is located right there in Houston, Texas. And I haven't seen anyone go down from BLM and protest that. But you think about the Black on Black crime and all the things that are happening, the lack of good quality education opportunities in the Black communities. No one's talking about that. They're allowing the teachers unions to keep schools closed. We can't even get school choice passed here in Texas. So we have to go on the offense and talk about these things instead of allowing them to believe that they have a moral high ground, which they don't have.
Yeah, conservatives ask me all the time, how do we win the minority vote in urban areas of Texas? And I say, talk about what you just talk about. That, that those babies' lives matter. A good system of
Yeah.
education matters. The ability to advance matters. An education matters. You know, your family matters. Your neighborhood matters. Your security and your safety matters. And when we start talking about that, we're going to start winning more hearts and minds.
Definitely. So before we move to our next guest, Alan, what is your plans now in a political area?
Yeah,
Well, I
Colonel,
thought I was
what's
going to
going
get
on?
away.
What's going to
What's going
happen?
on with you? Everybody wants to know.
Yeah, well, I did submit my resignation as the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. That's effective 11 July. A lot of people are asking me to prayerfully consider future political opportunities, and that's what we're going to do. And so, sometime before the 11th of July, we'll make an announcement. And I look forward to hopefully having the support of the Texas Latino Conservatives.
Well, Colonel, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for your leadership in the Republican Party of Texas. Some great things have happened, and we're sad to see you leave. Just as I think we're starting to turn the corner, and so there'll be some big boots to fill, as we say in combat. But we have great people in Texas. It's a big state, and we hope that someone steps up and continues the leadership that RPT has provided for us. So. Again, stay cool today. Congratulations on the birth of your grandchild, and maybe we'll see you down in Zapata County this Friday.
That'll be awesome. I look forward to it. And I'm just going to continue to fight for Texas, maybe just in a different position.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Buenos días.
Buenos días. Hasta
Buenos
luego.
días, hasta luego. Muchas gracias.
Okay, Andrea.
Well, awesome. Well, talking about what it need to be done in our state and what it need to be done in Texas and in our community. So it's a lot of work with the new generations. And that's what we're going to talk about with our two next guests, which is our dear friend Joe Castro and also Vianca Rodriguez. They are, Joe Castro is not only the city council member in Alvin, Texas, and mayor pro-tem, but also he's now being part of this organization called Run GenZ.
Run, R-U-N.
R-U-N. Corre.
Run Gen Z.
G-E-N. Z.
First of all, what is Gen Z?
Generation Z.
Oh, what happens now that
Generation Z is like my son, like my kids.
Okay, what happens now that
So now it's like they are the future of
Okay,
this country.
So what happens when we run out of the alphabet? Now Z's gone, so now what?
Z plus.
Okay. Joe, good
Well,
morning.
welcome, Joe Castro. Amigo, ¿cómo estás?
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Good.
Howdy.
Good. Hey, Orlando, you're asking too many questions about what happens after us.
Yeah, right. This is like you guys are going to storm the world. We're so excited. As Andrea said, we got a lot of great things happening in Texas, and it's amazing to me after having spent, as I told Colonel West, I've been here since 1962, and I've seen Texas go from a completely Democrat state in the 60s and 70s and 80s, switching over to where we won the Texas legislature, both the House and the Senate, and we took over every position. Conservatives took over every position in the state of Texas. And now the wave is continuing. I mean, what we're seeing happening in Texas with Hispanics is just nothing short of phenomenal, Joel. And quite frankly, I think you were holding the title as one of the youngest city council members in Texas, and you were just bumped off by Roman Garcia down in Kerrville, Texas. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm ecstatic. I called him right after he won, and I congratulated him because, it's fun being the youngest elected official. It's a good title, but after you serve your second term and get elected as mayor pro tem and have a little bit of experience, you're kind of like, all right, good title. Let's pass it on. But to what you said, Orlando, is that you saw Texas come from a blue state with Ann Richards now to a strong conservative state, and we're seeing it change. I've reaped the benefits of being raised in a conservative state, and I want to keep it that way. I don't want to fix what's not broken. We're not blind to the fact that under conservative leadership, Texas has been the most prosperous state in probably in the world. There's a reason why we're the 10th largest economy. There's a reason why our economy is bigger than Russia. It's because of conservative leadership actually works and gets the job done. And that's what we're trying to do and run Gen Z to prepare that for the future generation. We see that all throughout history, it's the younger generations that tend to get things done. If you look back to the disciples that Jesus Christ had, John, he was one of the youngest. I think he was 16 or 13. We look about the Declaration of Independence. It was John Madison. I think he was 26. James Madison, I'm sorry, was 26 when he signed the Declaration of Independence. We look here in Texas. Sam Houston, he was first elected when he was 21 as district attorney in Tennessee. William Barrett Travis defended the Alamo and was in his early 20s doing that. So all throughout history, there's been it's been consistent that it's the younger generation to get the job done and to preserve those values and bring that next generation forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I look in the military, Joel, and I should address you as mayor now that you're mayor pro tem. I'm sorry, mayor.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, and a lot of times we don't even we forget about the young men and women that have made
Yep.
sacrifices in the Latino community in Texas. Tejanos have served honorably and have won congressional medals of honor here in the state of Texas. I mean, these are
Yep.
young people. And so, yeah, we're excited that you guys are jumping in and making a difference. And, you're fulfilling the vision. Obviously, you know that this political action committee has is to preserve conservative leadership in the state of Texas for the foreseeable future for your generation, Gen Z, and your children. And so that's exactly what we do, and we've got great candidates across the state like you, and then you brought Veronica. Why don't you tell us a little bit? Veronica, are you with us? Can you hear us? And is your mic on?
Bianca, you
Yes,
here?
yes,
Bianca, I'm
Bianca.
sorry.
Yeah, I'm
Bianca,
here.
hola.
Hi, ¿cómo
There you go.
Hi.
están?
Bianca
Bianca,
is
good
one of
morning.
Good
Bianca
morning.
just
Thank you for
joined Run
having
Gen
me.
Z. She's awesome.
Okay, well then,
Tell
Yes.
us a little bit about the
yeah.
organization, when that organization started, and who's the founder, and how did this started?
Yeah, so this organization is basically brand new, not even a year old, almost. It was founded by State Representative Joe Mitchell from Iowa. He's a fellow Gen Zer himself. And right now, we're doing the best that we can to recruit, mentor, and empower young conservatives to get elected to local and state office. So specifically, we started around August of last year. So we're almost at that year mark.
So tell us how people can, do for the organization, can join the organization, and what is you guys are helping young conservatives to run for office.
Yeah, so listen, so right now, Pew Research Center says that 1 in 10 of eligible voters are part of the Generation Z electorate, which is a very large portion of eligible voters that we can't be overlooking. And it's only going to grow farther from that. So what we try to do is we try to engage these eligible voters to consider, not only voting, but to also get involved. And we try to play a role by, because right now a lot of young conservatives think that we should just need to continue to looking up to others to be able to run for office. It's always like, when I grow up, I want to run for office, but we're already grown up. So now is the time that we have to help these young conservatives turn from activists to becoming leaders in their communities. And you can do that by getting involved with your local school board. You can do that by getting involved with city council, just like Joel Castro did. But a lot of people oftentimes don't know how to do that. And so Run Gen Z is committed to helping these young conservatives by getting them to sign up with us to fill out an application. Once you fill out an application on our website, we get in touch with you. Usually that is with our boss, Mason Morgan, and he will run through the process with you, what it is that we do. Once we get you vetted, and we'll start with your district researching, to figure out, going a couple years back and trying to see what seats are more viable, because we want to be able to help you figure out. We don't want to just throw you into that lion's den. We want to be able to help you figure out which seats have a higher likelihood of you having a chance to win. And that's why district researching is so important. That element is so important, so that we can be able to then pair you up, do the appropriate training that you might need since you are starting to get your foot in the door with politics. And we pair you up with one of our mentors, which our mentors as of this moment are approximately 23 elected officials. And 5 of them just recently got elected as well. And they are all part of this Generation Z. So
Wow.
it's really impactful. The amount of work that we've been able to do in a little under a year is incredibly meaningful, and I hope to be able to continue being a part of it, and so that we can be able to continue expanding over the next coming years. Because right now, everything that we're seeing, especially in our schools, with the effects of all the guidelines under COVID and the effects of critical race theory, these are things that our conservatives, our young conservatives, can go and start making a difference right now and changing those things.
Bianca, I'm interested. First of all, I see the background, but I can't tell where are you broadcasting from this morning, and I want to know a little bit more about your background.
Yeah.
Where are you from? ¿Hablas español o no? ¿Eres
Sí,
bilingüe
sí,
o
sí.
no? Okay, so tell us
Sí,
a
soy
little bit about
bilingüe.
you. I mean, we all know who Mayor Castro is, but we don't know
Mayor
much. So
Castro.
give us the 30-second bio on Bianca Rodriguez.
Okay, so Bianca, I was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, born
Oh.
and raised there. After the impact of Hurricane Maria in 2017, I decided to take the leap and move to the diaspora, as we like to call it. I moved to Arizona first. I finished up my bachelor's in political science and a certificate in international relations at Arizona State University, and now I'm just wrapping up my master's degree in public administration, which I'm going to be doing online because I decided to move to Fort Worth, Dallas, the Dallas Fort Worth area, to come and work with Run Gen Z. I've always been involved with conservative politics, local and at a state level. And I remember telling my family back home, like, I want to get not only myself involved, but I want to get my fellow friends involved as well, because I think that we have such an important voice that unfortunately, like, we're not seeing this very frequently, not yet anyways, in all of both our national and local politics. So I've always wanted to be a part of that, and I'm so glad that Run Gen Z came to be cultivated, because now I get to be a part of that startup grassroots organization as well.
Well, excellent. Y una puertorriqueña, así que
Imagínate.
tenemos que ir a
Sí.
comer mofongo. Because
No,
we're
qué
getting
rico.
dominated by Colombians over here, so it's good to have a fellow
Caribeña.
otra caribeña.
Otra caribeña.
Listen, well, that's just an amazing story, and thank you for sharing that with us. I think you have a great, future. I think what you guys are doing is fantastic, and very timely, much needed here in the state of Texas, which brings me to my next question. Are you guys a political action committee, or are you like a 501c4 or 501c3? You're more educational. Tell us a little bit about Run Gen Z.
So we are a 501c4. I mean, that means that we can be a little bit more political than typical 501c3s can be, but that's like what was that percentage? Like a 60% or something like that. But we can definitely, like, that's the gift of being a 501c4. It's through the donations of passionate individuals that want to further our mission. We are able to be a little bit more vocal about what it is, what's the impact that we want. Like, we want conservatives to run for office, and we're going to help them get elected to office and become more politically involved and take that step from activist to leader, which is ultimately the most important thing to do, because of course everybody can make their own decisions, and if you want to be an activist for the rest of your life, then more power to you. But I think that the real change ultimately comes from our offices, and that's ultimately what we want to do. Is we want to change that. We want to change the course of this nation. So
Bianca, tell us like a little bit like if our viewers right now they have kids and they have children that they want them to get involved. What is the age that you guys are accepting people to get involved? Not only if they desire to run for office, but maybe volunteers or maybe to learn, maybe internships.
Yeah, I mean 18. 18 is that beginning age. So and if you're anywhere between 18 to 30 years old, you're welcome here as
I
a
missed it.
Generation Zer.
I I
Me
missed
too.
I missed the
Atlanta,
mark.
Me
you
too.
missed
I
it
was
by a
thinking about
couple
my kids.
years.
They're 16.
Yeah, I mean, even if they're 16, like they can still start getting involved, like learning more about us. And for the next 2 years until they turn 18, we can have them for sure volunteering and getting the word out. And right now, social media is so important as well. And that's something that Generation Z is most involved in as well. So if you want to get them to start being more vocal on social media, start sharing our content, and just yeah, just getting the word out. If you know of anybody else that wants to come and be a part of this team, then definitely head them our way, and we will be on the lookout for your kids in 2 years.
Yeah, no. The reason that I was asking you this is because I want to hear from Joe Castro, his experience when you start getting involved in politics. Because I know you were very young when I met you. It was like 2 years ago. You were not even legal to drink. So,
I don't think he is.
well,
Yet.
he's 22 now.
Oh, he is.
He's 22. Yeah, I know.
Man, how time flies.
Yeah, but I wanna hear your experience so that way people can relate with you.
Yeah, well, I'm a big boy now. I'm 22, no longer have a bedtime.
Hey, your
when y'all,
AARP card's on the way.
I'm waiting. I'm applying for my Social Security next month. So, yeah, so y'all met me when I was real young. But the fact of the matter is, if anyone has any inclination to get involved into politics and the government, the time to start is now. There's no better time than the present. We can no longer allow our generation to be dictated by people like AOC. That's just not. When I talk to people that I went to high school with, when I talk to people that I go to college with currently, that is not the people that what AOC wants to do, a Green New Deal, wants to raise taxes. That's not what my generation wants. Vianca made a point where we have 23 elected officials all throughout the country right now and run Gen Z. In Texas, we have since May, we had two more that were elected. Of course, Roman, and then another one who just won a runoff election on Saturday, and that was Nathan. And I am proud to say that all of the Texas Rangiers elected officials are Latino. And we're trying our hardest to get younger people, Latinos, involved into the conservative movement. Because, like I said before, the time to start is now, and the time for change and to preserve our conservative values that we have here in Texas and all throughout the country. We got to start working now.
Uh, Joe, when you start getting into politics, you were already in high school or you just graduated from high school?
Yeah, so I got involved in my party, in Missouri County Republican Party, when I was a senior in high school. It was the 2016, yeah, the 2016 election. So Trump just got elected, and I decided I wanted to get involved. I got involved there, and then 7 months out of high school, I decided that I was going to run for city council in Alvin. And when someone first brought up the idea of, hey, this position's opening up in Alvin, I thought to myself, who in the world would vote for an 18-year-old in Alvin? Because I don't think I would. But man, I was proven wrong. So I decided to run for office, end up drawing two opponents. Both of them were great people. I earned their support in my reelection, and I was reelected a year later because it was a special term. And I was lucky enough to get reelected with a little over 86% of the vote.
Wow.
And so, either one of you can answer this question, but what is the biggest concern for Gen Z? Is it the budget? Is it the deficit? Is it, climate change, global warming? Do you guys buy into that, or do you, like me? I mean, I believe that the climate is always changing, and I'm an
Yeah.
environmentalist, for example. I'm an avid outdoors person, fisherman. I respect the environment. I certainly am not for trashing the environment, polluting our water, dumping more carbon into the atmosphere than
Yeah.
is necessary. But I'm also vehemently opposed to the government telling me how to live my life. And I think the free
Yeah.
market can drive changes. But what are the areas that concern Gen Z more than anything else? Give us a little insight into your generation.
So, Orlando's on your point about the environment. I think most conservatives care about the environment,
Of
right?
course we do.
We're all huntermen,
Yeah,
we're
because
all
we're
fishermen.
not, we're not like the media, right? Because I know Vianca and Joel and me and Andrea, we're supposed to be anti-immigrant, right? We're supposed to
Exactly.
Right.
we're supposed to be deniers of global warming. This is crap. We care about the environment. We love the
Yep.
environment, and we like immigration. We like immigrants. We just want you to do it right, and we want the free
Yep.
market to set some incentives. But go ahead, tell
Well,
us what concerns you.
none of us would be here right now if it wasn't for immigrants. One of the things that I would say that's probably close to for me at least is I care about what my future kids and my grandkids. I want them to grow up in the same Texas I grew up in a prosperous Texas. I don't want them to grow up in a place like New York. We've seen what Andrew Cuomo has done in New York, especially since COVID. Business has died. COVID numbers through the roof.
Mhm.
The same thing in California. I want my kids and my family to be able to grow up in a place that's a little bit better than what the Democrats have to offer. We look at cities all across the nation, the major cities that are run by liberal Democrats, and I have I don't see anything that's good about them. We see an increase in crime. We see a decrease in jobs. We see less money in parents' pockets to pay for their kids. There's problems all across the nation when Democrats are in office,
Well,
and
I
so I
think
think
many families or many people are thinking like you because we're seeing a wave of people
yeah,
moving from New York and California to Texas.
By the way, have you guys seen that
exactly.
meme of the governor Newsom in California in front of a billboard? He put on a cowboy hat, says "Welcome to Texas."
Oh,
He just put a
yeah,
sign over California.
yeah. One thing is with Run Gen Z, we're at a pivotal moment in our life right now where we're starting to settle down. We're starting to look about a future, settle down, have kids. Where some of us are just finishing up college, and so when we're looking at that, we're looking about what kind of community we want to live in. Where do we want to settle to buy our first home? I want to settle in a place like Alvin, low property taxes, people who prioritize public safety, promote a robust economic climate. That's what I want to live in. Not a socialist city like Seattle, like San Diego, like New York.
Bianca, you share the same concerns and views as Mayor Castro?
I do. I mean, I would even add that right now, inflation is such an important topic for so many people. I feel like that's something that's really concerning a lot of conservatives, especially young conservatives. So I would add that as well as the concern for the environment and everything that's affecting us. I mean, we want small businesses to prosper. My family back home in Puerto Rico has a small business, and luckily, with the blessing of God, it's been able to surpass so many different like economic situations, like the 2008 financial crisis, and just now recently with COVID. So many small businesses in Puerto Rico have hurt and suffered, and luckily theirs is still prospering. It's a nice little bakery in Añasco, Puerto Rico. So if you guys ever go, you should definitely go visit it. So, um,
One of the
but yeah,
things
those
now that
things,
you
those are important for us.
Yeah, well, one thing that you just brought to my attention, of course, you talked about inflation. Uh, I had a friend of mine post last night or this morning about how California pays some of the largest wages in the United States. Yeah, exactly, because people can't afford the gasoline, the food, the housing cost, and the taxes. I mean, why do y'all think that people are escaping California in droves? because they can't sustain that rate of taxation, that burden on an economy that is crushing California. High tech is now starting to leave, not in mass, but they're moving. They're looking for other opportunities, as Mayor Castro says, in lower tax, more freedom-loving states like the state of Texas, and they're moving to other states in the West. So, yeah, there's nothing to crow about the fact that California has the largest wages in the United States, but when you're paying, $4.50 for a gallon of gas and $8 for a gallon of milk, you realize that wage doesn't do you any good. And as Bianca says, I mean, I come from a socialist communist country, so I know how that works, right? When they run out of other people's money, then it all goes down the tubes. Hello, Venezuela.
Ugh.
Yep. The fact of the matter is less government. It's just it's a better environment. I think that's kind of why our founding fathers left the British Empire. It's because the government was just a tyrannical government that's just overpowering on businesses and on families, and no one likes it, especially with us as being all of our families are from immigrants. Some of us are immigrants. um, I know my great grandmother, who she came from Mexico. She is probably the most loving person I know, and definitely the most strongest conservative Republican I know. Um, she fled this country or she fled Mexico for better opportunities, because there was just nothing in Mexico. There was nothing there to offer her. And she tells that all the time when she sees people like Kamala Harris, like AOC, when they go up and they talk and they give their 30-second spiel, when Joe Biden goes and forgets what he's talking about. um, she tells him that that reminds her of the Mexico she grew up in. That those same kind of ideologies is what worries her and worries me about my future and my
You know,
family's future.
one of the things I find interesting, and this is the failure. Let me repeat this because I know sometimes we have spies from the media watching us. This is the failure of the media in this country. You would think every time you open a link or see a news feed, or if you take a newspaper, which no one does anymore, but it's all
I do.
AOC, right? Yeah.
Yep.
It's all AOC. It's all about her left wing policies. And no one in the media does the necessary homework to highlight the other voices like Vianca, like Joel, like Maida, like, Roman Garcia. We have thousands of young, attractive, more intelligent political leaders than AOC. But AOC fits their agenda, the leftist
Exactly.
agenda in this country. So they're constantly. I mean, I go on Google and I get a news feed, or I go on Yahoo and I get a news feed, and 6 of the 32 stories are about AOC, whether she's bashing her own party, or bashing the Republicans, or bashing energy, or bashing the economy, or bashing the rich. I mean, she's a total committed leftist socialist, and that's not going
Yep.
anywhere. But on the other side, we have Bianca, we have Joel Castro, we have all of you, which I consider the A team, and no one in the media bothers to talk to you guys and highlight y'all on the front page of the New York Times, or the Boston Herald, or the LA Times, or the Houston Chronicle, or the Dallas Morning News.
Joe
Well,
and Bianca, what is the biggest challenge that you guys are seeing with the Generation Z for to achieve your goals?
yeah. Let me just add on to what Orlando just said. Um, the numbers don't lie, right? We look at the last election, and what Chairman Allen West said earlier, that Trump had the largest minority voter population that voted for him than any other Republican in the last 60 years. But then you look, you watch the media, you see what's on CNN, you see what Jorge Ramos has to say on
Mm-hmm.
Univision, and they make the Republicans, they make us seem like these these horrible people. We're racist, we're bigots,
Yeah.
we're all these sorts of things. But
Anti-immigrant.
if we're anti-immigrant, if we are those things, then tell me how more minorities voted for Republicans than any before in any other election. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because the wind blew and their skirts were rose, and so we didn't like what we saw.
And as Bianca said, we need more leaders, less activism. And now the journalists are more activists than journalists, like Jorge Ramos.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jorge is not a journalist.
He's not a journalist anymore. I used to respect the guy, and I used to, buy all his books, and now defraudada por completo.
I mean,
well,
you
Andrea,
gotta
you were
admit,
a former reporter.
I was a reporter from
Yeah,
Univision.
you have an inside.
Yeah, I was a reporter from Univision, and in my time, and Orlando can tell you, it was a completely different situation in the media than is right now. We used to cover politics. We used to cover court. We used to cover serious things. But now it's all about, en español decimos la prensa amarilla, sensacionalista. Y ya, y están nomás sacando basura de noticias.
Pero la prensa amarilla existe en todos los países socialistas. Porque
Claro.
tú vas a Venezuela y tratas de leer un periódico o verte un programa de televisión, igual que Cuba, es todos los medios
Y eso
amarillos.
es lo que está haciendo, ahora eso es el headline.
And let me just say, I mean, I met Andrea when I was elected to Houston City Council, and she was the anchor here at Univision in Houston. And they did stories. They did stories, and they would let the Houston community decide. But I got to tell you, I mean, Jorge Ramos, he has all of the makings of a very attractive. I mean, he's a handsome fellow. He's an intelligent person.
Oh, yeah.
But he is responding to the woke community, the stockholders, the investors, the private equity firms at Univision that are driving this whole new philosophy. And here's what I say, Joel and Vianca. We've seen what the Democrats offer. We don't like it, and what they're selling, we ain't buying.
Yep.
That's right. We only
Well,
want
listen.
to be a part of just journalism, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, guys, we're almost out of time. We do this every Wednesday. I'm really excited to learn about Run Gen Z. I hope that our young viewers will click on y'all's link. Bianca, you want to repeat the website and how people can get involved real quickly?
Yes, it's very simple. It's rungenz.com. Right on that main web page, you're going to see there's a link. It says Become a Leader. You can click on that, and it'll take you right to our application. Our application is not very lengthy at all. It's just going to ask you a quick couple of questions, just for us to get to know you a little bit better, to know what topics are most important to you, to know what issues are most important to you. And that way, once we begin the process with you, we can go ahead and start figuring out what would be most convenient, most viable for you to be able to run in. And as well, you can follow us on social media, Instagram, Run Gen Z, Twitter, the same handle, and you can get in touch with any of us. I'm always paying attention to the social aspect of things, so I'm on social media a lot. So if you want to reach out to me and get more involved, do so.
Great.
All right, when you come to...
One of the things I would like to say, we said a couple times here that there's 23 of us elected officials a part of Run Gen Z, right? Every single one of us, there's nothing special about us. We're all just normal people throughout the great state of the United States. And there's nothing special about us. And if we can do it, anyone else can do it. Some of us were elected at 18. Some of us were elected a little earlier in their 20s. Whether it be the city council, school board, the state legislator, we can all make a change, a positive change, and preserve the common sense conservative values into our states, into city halls, into our schools, if we just run for office.
Well, let me just say que estoy sumamente orgulloso de los dos. Ustedes son increíbles. Andrea, I don't have to worry about my future, given that these young leaders are coming up right behind us, and they're going to continue to grow the conservative movement in this country and in the state of Texas. And I think there's going to be an army of young. I mean, I see this as I did Ralph Reed in the 80s when Ralph Reed helped wake up the Christian conservatives in this country and help Ronald Reagan to the historic election of the 80s. I see this Gen Z getting involved and exerting their voice, their demands, their vision of the future, which is a reasonable future. Yes, it's sensitive to the climate. Yes, it's sensitive to the national debt. Yes, it's sensitive to responsible budgets for the future of their children and grandchildren. And I can tell you, I'm extremely, extremely proud of these young folks. And I think we have a bright future in this country with people like Mayor Castro and Vianca Rodriguez and the countless others that are running, Mayra Flores and our friend over in Kerrville, Mr. Garcia, the young city councilman, and Monica de la Cruz, and, Villalobos just elected in McAllen, Texas, and Freddie Arellano down in Maverick County. I mean, we just have some rock stars in the state of Texas and across the country. Just delighted both of you took some time to join us for our weekly program, and I hope that you'll come back. So, Andrea, se nos ha acabado el tiempo. We're out of time, and we don't want to pay overtime to this great studio because the producer gets hungry. Mark's got to go eat, so he doesn't want to stay after lunch. And
we don't want to go out of budget.
But again, Texas Latino Conservatives, TLC Live, we're here every Wednesday. We depend on your donations to keep doing what we're doing in the state of Texas. So go to our website, TexasLatinoConservatives.com, TexasLatinoConservatives.com. If you don't want to give or donate to the Political Action Committee, you can always donate to our 501c4, where we too in the state of Texas get involved in training these young people and finding the next brilliant stars of the state of Texas. Because as you know, as the song says, the stars are bright in Texas. And so for us to continue our conservative leadership, pro-business, liberty-loving government that we have in the state of Texas, you guys have to get involved. So make a donation. We will see you here next week, and I will give the last word to my Colombiana amiga Andrea Gomez.
Que viva Puerto Rico, Bianca, gracias.
Y Joe, can I say one thing?
We're out of time, Joe. We're going to have you back.
I just want to say that we as a Run Gen Z person and a young elected official, I thank you because we can't do it without the support of the people that were involved before us. So thank you for all your support.
Okay, yeah, I'm
Thank you so
the old
much.
goat in the crowd. Happy, but
platform.
we're delighted to have you guys, and we look forward to having you back.
Definitely. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Joe.
Orlando.
Thank you, Bianca. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes por habernos acompañado en este programa, a los que participaron como invitados y también a los que nos estuvieron acompañando durante esta hora viéndonos en TLC. Así que nos vemos el próximo miércoles. Chao, chao.
Hasta
y
luego.
que tengan buena semana.